For the Birds, Chapter 6, The Vampire Forest. The next day, they made it across Lake Erie, from one limestone island to the other. They saw many seagulls and a large colony of cormorants on some dead trees sticking out of the water. By this time, the air was full of migrating birds. Flocks of swallows, red-winged blackbirds, killdeers, and warblers of many kinds. For days they flew south. It got warmer, and there were more and more insects to eat. "Why don't we just stop here?" said Samantha one day, as they were flying over a dark-looking forest. "First, it's not your winter habitat," said Phoebe. "Birds are very traditional, you know. They hate ending up in the wrong place. Second, we're only down as far as the southern United States. They get winter too. They may not get snow and ice, but it turns cold and the leaves fall off a lot of trees and the insects die or hibernate. You wouldn't make out very well. And third, and this is very important, that place down there is known as the Vampire Forest. It's best to keep right out of it." "The Vampire Forest?" Samantha asked with a shudder. She looked at the forest again. It looked like all pine trees, row upon row of them. It did look gloomy. "What do you mean by that? Are there vampires down there?" "No," said Phoebe, laughing as much as a crow can laugh. "The forest itself is a vampire. In folk tales, vampires were once known as the undead. They were thought to be creatures who were neither alive nor dead, but kept themselves going by other living creatures. This forest is the same. It's not exactly alive, but the forest isn't dead either. And it's kept alive by the blood of the living." "What?" said Samantha. "How come?" The more she stared at that forest, the creepier it became. "A long time ago now," Phoebe said, "when people started cutting down trees in the fir and pine, they realized that sometimes the forest got hit by a certain kind of insect. A whole lot of these insects would appear all at once. They would eat all the needles of the trees, or they would eat all the bark or the buds of the trees, and the trees would die. Insects like sawflies and spruce budworm, for instance. If the trees died, and then they stood around, pretty soon those trees were no good for lumber and such. Then the people invented something that they thought would save the forest. They invented insect sprays. They went around in little planes spraying huge doses of poisonous insecticide into the trees. Now the sprays did kill those harmful insects, but the trouble is they killed a lot of other good insects too. Then, of course, birds ate those poisonous insects and the birds were poisoned. Some birds died, and a lot of birds lost their ability to lay eggs that would hatch. And the sprays did kill all the harmful insects, and the sprays didn't, kill all the harmful insects. Some of them survived. Some of those bugs developed a resistance to the sprays, and that means the poisons no longer poisoned them. They became what we call superbugs. They kept on making more and more harmful insects, which kept on infesting the trees. And then the sprayers kept on spraying. Now the people who do the spraying feel stuck. If they stop, they think an insect infestation will get out of control. But if they keep on spraying, more and more birds and animals and fish will die. Now they know that the sprays are very bad, also for people who breathe them in, and especially for children. Some have even died from diseases linked to these sprays, and that is why we call this forest the Vampire Forest. "What can be done?" said Samantha. "Well, scientists are working on insect controls that will not poison," said Phoebe. "Another way is to just let the forest run its natural cycle. Let it die and let it regrow. And another way is to increase the number of insect predators, things that eat the harmful insects. birds or other insects even. And sometimes paper companies and logging companies will cut an insect-damaged stand of trees while they can still use the trees. But one thing is certain, spraying the forest for insects does a lot of harm. Spraying should be stopped as soon as possible. How come those trees are in such straight rows, said Samantha. They almost look like they were planted. Phoebe cawed with laughter. Well, they are planted. It's what you might call a man-made forest. And you'll notice that the trees are all one kind. When only one kind of plant or tree is planted, it's called a monoculture. Monocultures are not good news for bird life. How come, said Samantha. It did look rather boring down there. But Samantha could remember being bored when she was a little girl. Boredom would never kill you. Well, one kind of tree means one kind of food, said Phoebe. Nature prefers a variety. Imagine if all the people ever had to eat was, say, sausages, and only mean-eyed, red-headed boys with big feet could eat them. Soon, everyone else would die out, and the world would be full of nothing but mean, red-headed boys with big feet. That's a terrible thought, said Samantha, who had known several boys who seemed just like that. Luckily, they were now past the vampire forest, and ahead of them was a coast that gleamed beyond the sea. Chapter 7 is called The Burning Desert.